Here on the Radio Wammo Breakfast, where time now is 8:42.
As fundamental as these principles are, they may become topics of democratic debate from time to time. So it is today with the enduring institution of marriage. Marriage is a relationship between one man and one woman.
But there was Mitt Romney earlier on this week speaking at I think it was a high school graduation, college graduation, where the battle for the US presidency is beginning to heat up, and the rhetoric is being bandied about now. To talk with us more about this from 36-parallel.com, Paul Buchanan back with us this morning. Good morning to you, Paul.
Good morning.
So what we're hearing now is all about gay marriage there in the US, Paul.
Yeah, the U.S. is a little behind the times. I should point out that Romney speech that you just played a clip of was at Liberty Baptist University, a university that was founded by Jerry Falwell. So, you get a sense now he's trying to talk to the fundies in order to garner their support. But what's interesting about this is it may play into the Democrats' hands, because what appears to be going on from the Democratic side of the ledger is there's both a tactical and then a strategic objective at play. The election will be decided on pocketbook issues. The economy is slowly moving out of a recession, but it's still very, very sluggish. And that, at the end of the day, is going to be what the election's about. So it appears that the Democrats have decided to get the social issues out of the way before the Republican convention in July. And I think that this could be a little measure of genius, because the president came out a week or so ago and he said that he personally favored gay marriage. He saw no reason why gay people couldn't be married, and framed it as an issue of marriage equality. He did not say that he was going to enact legislation or impose it on anyone else. He just said it was a personal preference. And what it appears that they're trying to do is they're going to get these contentious social issues out of the way and put them to rest long before the November election. And so that's the tactical move, get the social issues that are divisive. I would imagine that we'll hear something from the president with regards to immigration in the month and a half to 2 months up until the Republican convention in mid to late July. And so that's the tactical objective, is clear the deck of the so-called culture war issues so that the president and his team can focus on their economic achievements, modest as they may be. But if you think about the situation that Obama inherited in early 2009, the United States has clearly rebounded, and that, of course, hurts Romney in the measure that he can't go back to these social issues, because it will be put to rest. That's the tactical side of things. The strategic side is actually even more interesting, because in doing this, by bringing up these social issues, by the time Romney gets to the convention, what you saw at Liberty Baptist University is going to happen at the convention. He is going to be captured by the religious right.
Yeah.
The fundamentalists are going to be all over him over these social issues, because they cannot pull their head out to realize that gay marriage will not destroy the foundations of the republic. They're so obsessed with sexuality and what people do in their bedrooms that they are going to latch on to Romney, and they're going to skew Romney's campaign hard to the right and away from the economic issues that are going to be the decisive factor in November. So both tactically and strategically, I think that the Democrats have really been on the front foot here. And of course, let's remember, we've talked about this before, he who dictates the terms of political debate wins. And in this sense, Obama has turned the tables on the Republican who have dominated the debate over the last 2 or 3 years and put the ball in their court in a most uncomfortable way, because I have Republican friends in the United States, not a lot of them, but I've got a few of them, and they belong to the moderate Republican camp, which says, the government should stay out of the business of legislating sexuality, that, people should be treated equally. And a lot of them are part of a group, at least gay Republicans are part of a group called Log Cabin Republicans. And the log cabin references to the days of Lincoln and what have you. And so in making this move, Obama also opened some divisions within the Republican camp, again, all to push Romney to the right, because quite frankly, even though the religious right in the United States makes a lot of noise and comprises about 30% of the popular vote, the vast majority of Americans are moderate in their views when it comes to issues of marriage equality. And so this is not going to strike a chord with the larger electorate that is so important for victory in November.
So it's not a bigger gamble as what we think it might be. And you're saying that there are more moderates than people on the extreme end of the political spectrum. So this really wasn't a huge gamble at all for Obama.
No, if you were to listen to the conservative media outlets in the States, you would think that this was an absolutely suicidal move. And they point to the fact that last week in North Carolina, 61% of those who voted against marriage equality. And so they say, look, this runs against the grain of, a very Christian nation, blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is very few people turned out for that vote in North Carolina. Insignificant numbers when you think of the general electorate. And so here, too, it seems like the conservative media are themselves captured by a fundamentalist discourse that simply does not accord with the mainstream of the United States. And it has to do with the heterogeneity of the United States. The United States now, gay marriage is only the most recent in a number of civil rights debates that have been resolved by and large. For example, 20 years ago, barely 1% of Americans were in an interracial marriage. Now that's up to 8%. Hispanics have come into the fore, and although Hispanics are conservative, they now constitute almost 30% of the overall population and have intermarried tremendously. 20 years ago, Hispanics married their own. Less than 10% of Hispanics were married to someone who was not Hispanic. And then if you think of all the other races and creeds in the mix, and basically no one really today, unless they're in the deep, deep South or harbor very serious bigoted views, raise an eyebrow about interracial marriage and the like. And particularly amongst the younger 30s, I've got 2 adult children in the United States, both of them, one of them 31, the other one 27. One is married, one is single, and they just don't see it as an issue. And I use them as reflective of their cohort. The under 30s or under 35 simply do not see gay marriage in the way that their parents and their grandparents do. And that's what Obama is banking on, because, even if the Christians can garner 30% of the vote, in the last election they couldn't even get 27% of the vote. He, by catering to this new informed group of younger voters, can win the day. And yes, there is some risk with, for example, black churches, conservative elements in pretty much every church. Ironically, the Catholic Church doesn't really much like this, but then again, I've always said if the Catholic Church doesn't like gays marrying, they shouldn't let their priests get married.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. But
you were saying, Paul, you were saying young voters, but isn't the problem when it actually comes to voting day is getting the young people to vote? So it could be a gamble in that respect.
It is, but it actually sounds like a winning gamble, because this is the sort of issue that young people will come out and vote for. That is to say, young people are not as cynical as old dogs like me. They still have a view of a better future, of an improvement upon the human condition. They'll eventually get bitter and twisted, but certainly the under 30s carry the idealism that, quite frankly, is at the foundation of the American Republic. I mean, unfortunately, 200 years down the road, a lot of that's been eroded, But, the youth are the future, and judging from, watching my children, watching the children of my friends in the United States and what have you, again, they don't think it's an issue unless the religious right makes it an issue. I mean, they literally, a lot of people scratch their heads and go, why are these people so obsessed with the fact that gays want to get married? It's just a contract. It just affords them the insurance guarantees, the employment guarantees, all the sort of things that are available to heterosexuals, and it does nothing to the institution of heterosexual marriage. And it just, that's the attitude of a lot of young people, unless they're religious fundamentalist youth. And so I think that his gamble may well pay off, but even if it doesn't galvanize large numbers of young people to come out and vote in November, remember again, it puts to rest this social issue 6 months before the election. By the time we get to the election, so much other things will have happened. He being Obama as the incumbent, has the ability to orchestrate the course of events. Of course, we know about the so-called October surprises, which is a situation where a president facing a tough re-election in November pulls some foreign policy stunt in October so as to solidify national support for him. I don't think that Obama's going to wage war on anybody or drop a bomb, but he has the domestic equivalent of an October surprise that he could spring. And along with immigration, it appears that reproductive rights might actually come to the fore, which is interesting because we're having some discussion about reproductive rights here in New Zealand today. Well, that apparently is also going to bubble to the surface on the Democratic side before the Republican convention. And that's the key point, is this all then makes the Republican convention a right-wing circus show, which I think may well alienate the majority of voters and make the election a little bit easier for the president.
It's certainly going to be an interesting year. Paul Buchanan from 36-parallel.com. Thanks very much for your time.
My pleasure.
It is now 8:50.